a couple more minutes, or do you think we can get going? What's the
So are you
pleasure of
chairing the meeting?
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have said that up front. The
Oh,
chair,
I
Deb
didn't know.
Snyder, cannot make it this evening, and she asked me to chair the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. I should have said that at the beginning. What's the plan? Do you think we should wait a couple of minutes, or do you think we can start?
Well, you're the
I think
chair, so
we're
you get to.
I'm small d Democratic, the chair.
Well, I mean, we can get started and approve the agenda in the minutes.
Okay,
And that will
all
give
right.
everyone a
Why don't we
minute
do
or
that?
two.
Does anybody have any objections to the agenda as printed and given out? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved. I think I'll call this meeting to order of the Mansfield Democratic Town Committee. I think you had an announcement, Austin, about the announcement of this meeting being simulcast.
Yeah, so I also hear someone has the YouTube stream playing in the background, I think. So, oh, that was me. Never mind. You guys didn't hear it. It was just coming through my headset. Well, it's working. So yes, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube on the Mansfield Democrats YouTube account. So
Thank you very much.
as a public meeting, I would say you should never say anything you wouldn't want anyone to hear in public anyway, but just an extra warning. So
No, that's good. It's good we have a recording. Anybody have any comments, ideas, suggestions, changes from the minutes of the June 10th meeting? I don't know if that's someone talking or that's background noise.
So
I hear-
I move that they be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, anybody opposed or wish to abstain? All in favor, say aye.
I
Passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'll say again, I'm Vice Chair Joe Kaplan. The chair, Deb Knight Snyder, could not be here tonight. All's fine, all is well. She just couldn't be here tonight, so she asked me to chair. Before we go on and introduce the candidates, I think we should take a moment of silence for our departed member and state committee member, Randall Tatum. So if you could just please take a moment of silence, please. Okay, I think it's a difficult time for many of us. And I think it's good that many of us are out here because that's exactly what Randy would have wanted. So thank you very much. We're fortunate to have a couple of guest speakers tonight. First one being State Senator Diana DiZoglio. She's a candidate for state auditor. She's joining us from her car. So we're very lucky to have her. Her car, I think in Worcester you are?
Yes, I am. Yes. And it's great to be here with you. Thanks for the opportunity. Of a very gracious opportunity.
Great. Well, we're happy you came. It was gracious for you to accept our invitation. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your candidacy for state auditor, we would love to hear it.
Certainly. Thank you so much. And first, let me start with my sincerest condolences to the members of the committee for your loss. Sending all of my love and support to all of you, and of course to all loved ones of Randy, and very grateful for the work that was done, and just very sorry for your loss. My name is Diana DiZoglio. I am a state senator from the Merrimack Valley. A little bit about myself personally. I was born to a 17-year-old single mom in the city of Methuen. We moved back and forth between the cities of Lawrence and Methuen throughout my childhood, depending on where my mother could find work as a young nurse's aide. I ended up going through public schools and eventually going to Middlesex Community College, where I was able to obtain an associate's degree that was affordable thanks to our state's investments in families like mine. I worked at various nonprofits and community centers and youth centers. I served at the United Teen Equality Center in the city of Lowell as their cultural arts coordinator. I was a live-in teen mentor in a teen girls' home, working with young girls who had been abused and had some behavioral challenges. And I never thought that I was going to get into state government. But I ended up actually going to Wellesley College from Middlesex Community College. And the way that I was able to actually go there was through a scholarship. And I had double majored in psychology and Spanish there. And upon graduation, found myself in a situation where I needed a job and was looking for one. And a state representative at the State House at the time, this was over 10 years ago, needed somebody who spoke Spanish. And I had applied for the job in the office. And because I needed health insurance, even though I had no idea what a state representative did, or anything really about Beacon Hill at the time, coming from my circumstances, I said, this was a great opportunity. I need health insurance. I'll take the job. And I learned so much about the way that state government can have a positive impact on families like mine and families like yours, working families in our communities. And I learned about the positive impact that state legislators could make regarding education, climate change, healthcare, transportation, mental health, substance use disorder, so on and so forth, housing. And I had that opportunity that I was so grateful for, where I learned all of these wonderful things. But I also learned about the flip side of state government, where some issues actually existed. You see, during my short time working as a legislative aide at the House of Representatives, I was sexually harassed. And the way that it was thought appropriate to deal with that circumstance was to allow me to be dismissed from my position and to require that I sign a taxpayer-funded non-disclosure agreement that prevented me from talking about anything that had happened and from explaining the circumstances surrounding the culture of, frankly, abuse, discrimination, and harassment that I had witnessed. But I didn't let them get rid of me, and I didn't stay quiet, and I didn't leave state government like I was told to do. I instead decided to run for state representative myself, and a little over a year later, made my way back to that same chamber as the youngest woman serving in the House of Representatives at the time. And when I got elected to that seat, I took that responsibility incredibly seriously. And I knew that it was incumbent upon me to use what I had learned, to use my experiences, to use that knowledge that I had gained about those inner workings in the building and what was really going on in state government, to fight for families who, like I was, maybe for other reasons, but who, like I was, have either been dismissed or ignored or disenfranchised by a system that isn't working for all families in Massachusetts the way that it could and the way that it should. And I took on the fight to ban those taxpayer-funded non-disclosure agreements in cases of harassment and discrimination. That's a fight that I took with me to the state Senate, where I was happy to see the passage of the legislation I filed to reform the use of those agreements to protect your taxpayer dollars and to protect workers across the state. But we have an administration, we have a governor who continues to dig his heels in. Even though the legislature has been fighting this battle, we have a governor who continues to dig his heels in on matters like this, on transparency and accountability. Beyond this matter, during the last year and a half alone, when the governor diverted vaccines, precious vaccines, away from our local communities and sent those vaccines to private companies and privatized those services instead of reinvesting the millions in tax dollars that should have come back to our local communities, into our cities and towns, I stood up and I demanded a full audit and investigation into the governor's office and into the administration regarding why no bid, no RFP contracts went out to these folks in the private sector in the millions of dollars, allowing for our disabled, our elderly, our immunocompromised, and those without transportation to suffer as a result. When the governor came before a legislative panel and told falsehoods about what really occurred during the Holyoke Soldiers' Home tragedy, I stood up and I demanded accountability and an investigation And I called for the governor to come back before us under oath so that maybe we could this time get the truth about what really happened regarding the Holyoke Soldiers Home tragedy. Of course, because we deserve transparency and accountability, but more so because the families of those who lost those 77 veterans, they deserve the truth and they deserve justice. When the governor continued to contract with McKinsey Consulting, even though our own Attorney General, Maura Healey, had announced that they were found guilty of being complicit with Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family in helping to contribute to covering up their contributions to the opioid crisis, which, as we know, has devastated thousands of families, thousands upon thousands of families. When the governor continued to contract with them, even though our own AG had announced that she was suing that company, I stood up as a senator and I demanded accountability, and I demanded that the governor stop wasting taxpayer dollars on a company that has proven to abuse the public's trust. As state auditor, I won't need to keep calling for these audits and calling for these investigations. I'll be able to take my 10 years of working up on Beacon Hill, fighting for these matters, and I will audit and I will investigate these matters and more. And we know that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and the state auditor's role is to be an independent voice and somebody who is able to boldly speak truth to power. And I believe we need a state auditor that has a track record of being able to do so, even if that means standing alone. But I can't do this without you. I can't do this without your support. So I am here to let you know a little bit about my candidacy and about myself personally, but also to respectfully ask for your support and for your vote so that we can work together to make our state government work more efficiently and more equitably for all families in Massachusetts. And once again, I am so grateful to be here. It is my humble honor. I never thought that that I would ever be running for state office. So, this is something that is, quite a different thing than what I thought I was going to be doing growing up. But it's the way that I think that we can make a difference and be most impactful for families that are struggling in our communities. And it is my humble honor to be here. And I do want to turn it back over to you, Joe, if there are any questions before I jump.
Thank you very much, Senator. We enjoyed hearing you. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to ask our guest, our first guest?
I do, Joe.
Jean? You have the floor.
Diana, I greatly admire your story, and you're just basically an awesome person. I can tell that, and I absolutely agree. You should be running for something. But I'm not sure what training and what skills does it take to be an auditor? What does the auditor do that you have the skills and training for?
So a lot of people have asked me this question in my district, and actually I've gotten some scolding from some of my supporters in my community who say, we elected you to be a state senator and we love you in this role. Why would you ever run for state auditor? Mm-hmm. And I have said back to them, because they have said to me, why would you bean count? That's not, necessarily your strength, right? You're somebody that is out front and championing these issues for us, and we want you to continue doing that. My response is this: the state auditor's role is a management role. It is the state's chief accountability officer. And the last 10 years of my life have been spent going line by line through the state budget and fighting for equity, accountability, diversity, inclusion, fairness for our communities, and championing transparency and accountability pertaining to how those tax dollars are being spent and what policies are going through that state budget process that need to be checked and where we need to be more accountable. That is experience that is invaluable to the state auditor's role, whose role is to make sure that there is accountability in how tax dollars are being spent. Yes, we have accountants that work in the office, and their work is invaluable. It's very necessary. But the auditor's role is a management role, and it's a chief accountability officer role. And that is something that I have experience with through the years. And I plan on taking what I've learned in the state budget process and in my role through being a senator and working on these issues and working on the state budget to the next level, and taking what I've learned about where we really need the administration in particular to be challenged to the next level. Like I said, I've been calling for investigations and audits into the issues that I know are issues, but unless I get the support of folks who happen to be in higher leadership roles, those things don't happen. Being the state auditor would allow me to actually effectuate the change that I have been advocating for the last 10 years. And I am excited about the opportunity, and very much looking forward to taking what I've learned about how the State House operates through working on that budget to a place where I will be able to actually effectuate change on making sure that there is accountability in the administration to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, I don't know if you have a question. I keep seeing your phone come up on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I just turned down the volume. I'm sorry. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
I did want to thank the senator for joining us tonight, and I'll tell you one thing. I've seen her in action in the past few weeks at several events, and she's very well motivated and well moving. She's doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Anyone have any other questions that they want to bring up? Please, Senator, keep in touch with us. Send us all
For
your
sure.
contact information. I guess many of us will be seeing you at the state convention virtually on Saturday.
Virtually. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to be here tonight. Let me apologize in advance that we will be getting, I think, 4 minutes to speak. You're probably going to hear a very similar speech at the convention. My story is my story. So I'm sorry if there's anything that's being repeated, but I do think it's important to continue to share our personal stories when we're campaigning and letting people know who we are. But again, I'm excited to see all of you, and I look forward to seeing you all in person. I can't wait for the opportunity. It's great to be here virtually. I'm excited to see you all in person along the campaign trail. And I will absolutely, Joe, be putting my contact information in the chat. If anybody would like to contact me, I'm going to put my cell phone in there. That way, if you want to text and have a private chat and go beyond what we were able to get into in this very short meeting, I'm happy to do that with you and work hard to earn your support. And so grateful again to be here. Thanks so much.
And the senator is at another event outside. I think she's outside of it in her car.
Yes.
A JFK event.
Yes,
honoring-
Senator Harriet Chandler from Worcester, a mentor of mine. She is getting an award tonight for her great work in the legislature. And we all came out as senators to support her tonight. So yes, I'm outside. I'm going to be heading back in to sit and support her for sure. But yes, thank you so much for your patience and for taking me in my car. Very grateful.
Well, enjoy, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. We do have a second guest speaker, Brett Barrow, who is I hope I said your name correctly. Haven't met yet, but had the pleasure to talk with you. Running for lieutenant governor. And you're welcome to talk. We can ask questions afterward. You're welcome to stay, but if you have other commitments and want to go like the senator did, we understand that as well. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And first, let me apologize in advance if I'm having some network problems. You may have seen on the news today that Beacon Hill has a massive water main break, and they have shut off my water for the last day and a half. And as they're digging in there, they are occasionally hitting the wiring and the internet too. So if I lose you, it's not because I jumped away from you. It's because it's been unstable today as they have been working on the system. So apologies in advance. Let me, can you all hear me okay? Is it working okay?
I think we all can.
Okay, good. So let me first introduce myself personally, and then I'll get into why I'm running. So who am I? So my name is Brett Barrow, and I'm running for lieutenant governor. And I am a kid who grew up in the Concord, Carlisle area. so full of privilege. And I recognize that I was very privileged in my upbringing. I attended the public schools in Concord, Carlisle. And when I was a sophomore in high school, this beautiful girl from the class ahead of me invited me to her junior prom. And we have been dating ever since. We have raised 2 kids in the area, and our 2 kids are in the area, and they are raising, we have currently 2 grandkids that we're helping them raise. And so they're in the area, and our family is still in the area. So this has been our home for many years. My wife thinks that I am not from this area because I did not move to the Massachusetts until I was in 6th grade. And of course, she was born and raised here. So I am, of course, an outsider. So I appreciate your tolerance for allowing those of us that moved in to be here. So given that I'm here, what makes my background unique? My background is not that of a normal candidate. I do have town hall as opposed to state house experience. When I lived in Carlisle, raising my kids, I was on the finance committee of the town. And as a finance committee member, I know how to put together the budget for the town and how the town budget impacts the businesses that are in the town. I was also a small business owner for 22 years out in Orange, Massachusetts. And for those of you who don't know where Orange, Massachusetts is, you can just watch the news because the weathermen always say, and it's really cold out in Orange today. And that's where I was. It was always cold out there. And I owned a little manufacturing company out there for 22 years. It was a small single facility shop. We only had 10 workers in it, but it was a very good business. And through luck, no skill, I was able to sell it just before the pandemic when I moved on to other things. The other things that I also do is that I am on the faculty of Babson College, which is the #1 school for entrepreneurship, 25 years in a row, which is what part of my focus is about. So why am I running? I'm running because the Democrats need to beat Governor Baker in 2022. And to beat Governor Baker, we have to win back the Democrats that have been voting for him, as well as independents that have been voting for him. Now, the problem that we have is that governor is generally perceived as an okay guy, right? But he lacks vision. And as we come out of the pandemic, Massachusetts is at an inflection point. The decisions that we're going to make about our economic recovery are going to affect the character of the Commonwealth for the next decade and beyond. We have a large chunk of money that the federal government is allocating to us in the ARC funds, which is the American Recovery Plan funds, that are about $5 billion. And how we choose to invest that will have a large impact on our towns and communities going forward. So we need a vision on how to spend that better. Now, we have a ton of issues that are out there, and some of them are large and some of them are small, but many of them are important whether they are large or small. When I have been out on the road, the #1 issue I hear about still is the pandemic. The governor did a poor job in creating a website when we first were going to go to vaccinations, and he did an even worse job at opening up schools. He's still lacking fundamental leadership in failing to mandate a mask wearing for the public schools and vaccine passports for the public schools. For the teachers, obviously, the students are too young, and that's the whole point. We're doing it not to restrict freedoms, but to keep the schools open and our small businesses open and running. And so I think that we need leadership on that issue. But beyond that issue, the pandemic is fundamentally changing the way that we live and work. And that change is not going to go back to normal when we're all vaccinated, right? We have fundamentally changed already. Small businesses, which make up 45% of the workforce in Massachusetts, a ton of them closed their doors forever during the pandemic, right? And many of them are still struggling. Sometimes they're struggling because they can't find workers. If you go to retail restaurants, a lot of times they'll say, well, we can't be open Monday and Tuesdays. I can't get servers to do that. And some of them will say, we're only takeout because I don't have the staff to actually run a restaurant. And so fundamentally, the pandemic is just changing what businesses will exist. On top of that, it's changing how we want to do business. A lot of us are, because of the lack of housing that's affordable and the lack of affordable and available daycare, have gotten comfortable telecommuting. And for us to want to go back to our work jobs in the site, we've got to be able to have housing that's close enough to where we're going to work that we don't have an hour commute or more, and daycare that's available for our people. But equally important, we got to have support for small businesses, because here's the catch. The greatest social program in the world is helping somebody get a job, not just because it gets them income, but because they feel like they are providing for their families and themselves when they do it. And small businesses, particularly outside of 128, make up the majority of the businesses that exist in Massachusetts. They are 99% of all the businesses. And small businesses hire locally, they buy from other local business, small business owners reinvest in the community. And when we talk about supporting small business, we're not talking about supporting a person who's making millions of dollars. We're talking about supporting the owner and the workers, and frankly, the community in which they reside. Because a lot of small businesses define the character of our towns. And we are either going to stand behind them and help not only those small businesses that are making it, but those that need to be created. We need all of our communities to have the same level of access to small businesses and small business growth if we're going to be successful. And we need to work as a state to encourage that. And one of the reasons I'm running is because I bring a unique skill set to the table. I think that between my small town government experience, as opposed to state house experience, the running the small business, the private sector of running the small business experience, and helping young students start businesses through Babson College, I think I bring a skill set that is missing right now from Beacon Hill. And the interesting thing about the Lieutenant Governor's office is it is what you make it to be. And I intend to, if elected, make it the role of the small business champion, going out to the various segments of the Commonwealth and talking to the local communities and local small businesses and the local Chamber of Commerces, and figure out what it is that they need from the state and the government to be successful, and working with them to make that happen. One key other point that I want to make. You hear a lot of people say, I want to support small business, and people think of throwing money at the business. That's not my perspective. My orientation is that when we have a problem, it's not just a challenge, it's an opportunity. Let me give you the best example of that. Climate change is real. It's coming, it's here, but it's coming in even more power. So yes, it is an existential threat, but it's also a tremendous opportunity for Massachusetts to create this new industry, whether it's wind or solar or other forms of alternative energy, not just for the engineers and the knowledge workers at the top, but for example, the people that currently work as an HVAC technician, who in the new world, when we move away from fossil fuel, will need to be certified and trained and installing and supporting whatever the new heating systems of the future will be. And that's an opportunity for creating businesses and skilling our people so that they can perform those tasks. So I'm an economic optimist. I believe that the future ahead of us can be great, but only if we have a vision and leadership to get there. And what we have now, I think, can be better. I think that Massachusetts can build a better future. And that's why I'm running. I want to be the person that helps the governor build a better future as we move into the not only the next 4 years, but the next decade and beyond. So I can answer any questions that any of you might have about anything I covered. or anything else for that matter.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? I'm curious, you said Beacon, are you from Beacon Hill now?
I am. So I moved on when my youngest son, my youngest child, who is my son, when my youngest son graduated from college, my wife and I had always lived in the suburbs. And so we decided that we would, as many have done, downsize, move into the city and spend a few years living in the city. So yes, we live on Beacon Hill now.
Any other questions? Thoughts? Anyone? By the way, if you can do this, go into the chat, give your contact information. Would love to have it.
Perfect.
If
I will
it's a
do that.
website.
Thank you very much. And I enjoyed chatting with you all. And thank you for having me here today. I will, as soon as I enter my information, I'll drop off. So I'll mute.
It looks
while
like
I'm doing
Sally
that.
has a question and is having trouble
Yeah,
unmuting.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can you
Hi,
hear me
Sally.
now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So the Berkshires are where I'm from, and Pittsfield and GE and all of that. Have you been out to the Berkshires, and what do you see as can be a help to them?
Yeah, so I have been, but not as a candidate. I am going this Friday out there. I actually have an all-day trip. We're stopping at a number of places throughout there. So I will be there Friday. My small business, as I mentioned, was in Orange, Massachusetts, which is in central Massachusetts. Many of the issues are similar. And in fact, some of my clients, my customers were actually in the Berkshire area. And so I had some clients in Springfield and, Worcester. And so throughout Western Massachusetts, I had clients there. And my orientation is the challenge that Western Massachusetts faces: beautiful landscape, wonderful people. For whatever reason, they are suffering people moving away from there. And for the community to thrive, they need people within that community to create businesses, right? Attracting businesses, small businesses. I'm not talking about GE moving in, although it would be great if we got a large employer who came in and provided a lot of jobs. But I think in the short term, what we need is small businesses created by entrepreneurs that come in. Curiously enough, one of the big industries out there right now is cannabis. It's actually an opportunity for that area. And I know some people have an issue with it, but if it's developed correctly, and there are very strict guidelines on it right now, everything has to be within state. It is not the big tobacco companies coming in. It is small entrepreneurs right now, and it's heavily regulated. But I'm not saying that's the sole solution. I'm just saying that people that are entrepreneurs can create businesses there. If we could get an east-west rail line developed, that would help tremendously. If we could get broadband, with remote work, I think that would also encourage people to live out there. So I think that there's a number of opportunities that come out there, but there is no, as the expression goes, silver bullet that we can wave a wand and suddenly make Western Massachusetts a thriving, growing area. It takes hard work. It takes rolling up our sleeves and actually getting out there and understanding what the challenges are out there. And unfortunately, as almost everybody from Central and Western Massachusetts will tell you, they kind of get ignored. If you're outside of the 495 loop, it's really hard for anybody out there to get attention from the State House, right? And as somebody who, like I said, Central, not Western, but Central Massachusetts, owned a business out there, I understand some of the challenges of working in, having a business in a rural community where there are not the big GEs around and financial institutions and et cetera. It takes the neighborhood working together to make things happen.
Thank you.
So
So I have
I
a
got-
question.
Go ahead. Who's
My
speaking? Tyler, I'm sorry, you have the floor.
Okay. My question is that housing, I think, is an issue. I know people are roaming and doing remote work on caravans and across the nation, and that families are doubling up nationwide because there's such a shortage of affordable or even any housing. You know, if a house gets sold, and, you know, people often are forced out of rent, you know, because it's being used for a different purpose, and they often have to move hundreds, if not thousands of miles. So,
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I have, you know, look, my son is in the process of buying a house right now he just got married on Labor Day weekend. So with his new bride, right? And the bride's family is from Ohio. And yes, I know it's a red state, but, you know, there's pockets of it that are blue. But we went out there, and the cost of housing out there, you know, you could get these beautiful brick and stone houses, 3-4 bedroom houses for $300,000 and $400,000 in really nice areas. You know, it's hard to find anything of that variety in Massachusetts. Okay, our standard of living is higher, and I get it, but it's a fundamental problem. So the solution to it is not a single answer. It's not just building high rises in the urban centers, although we do need more housing in the urban areas. It's also creating high-speed and decent suburban rail so that people can live further out from the city and commute into it and not, you know, put a strain on the housing. So my son's going to move to Swampscott. He's got a 10-minute walk to the train and then about a 45-minute train ride. And that's about as far away as he can get. And he's got, you know, a 2-bedroom house that he's buying out there. And the orientation is, man, that's all I can afford. And he and his spouse are making good money. Imagine if you live in an area that doesn't have trains. Imagine if you live in an area that is not as economically, you're not as economically well off that you can do it. So housing, in my mind, is the first fundamental problem that we have, because at the end of the day, if you can't have a roof over your head, it's hard to do anything else, right? If you don't have a house to live in, it's hard to be a person that goes to a job and eats food. It's really hard. So housing, to me, and again, whether it's affordable or just available housing, is a massive issue. Part of that ARP money that I was talking about, that $5 billion, needs to be allocated to housing, without a doubt.
well, there's another issue on the art, and it's local. And it has to deal that we have a Black Doll Museum that couldn't afford the rent on their place where they had it. And, you know, he's talking about arts in Mansfield and nationwide, because I'm not sure there's other ones around the country, or there may be, you know, as far as specifically arts funding.
Yep. So arts funding is, well, many people will tell you that it's a luxury, and sure, compared to schooling and some other things, one might call it a luxury. What art does is help us develop a portion of our brain. It also challenges us to think about the world in which we live and how we view the world. So I'm a believer in some art funding. What the right amount is, I honestly can't tell you that, but I do not believe that we should be gutting the arts in our schools, because if you don't teach it in our schools, it's hard to learn to appreciate it later. I will acknowledge that the lowest grade I got in college was art history, right? It seemed the harder I worked, the dumber I got in that class. But I got to tell you that when I went to Paris for my sister's graduation, we took a vacation because she was overseas. I spent more time in the Louvre enjoying the Louvre and the art that was there, and visiting, you know, Picasso and other museums. I enjoy that. I think it's an important element, but I would say that, you know, in terms of the hierarchy of needs, housing comes in front of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I think it's a more critical need, and it's also a more desperate need, I think, too.
Yeah, and we also have one more question from Deb Britt, wrote to me in the chat room. Deb, you have the floor.
Hi, okay, so my question is, it's related art, housing. It is the area that we live in, this area, seems to always not have enough funding for housing, transportation, um, businesses. So I had a small business. I ran the National Black Dog Museum, but I also worked down in the Fall River area. For the last 20 years, there has always been this conversation about there's going to be transportation to connect Fall River, New Bedford with Boston. With the housing crisis that's going on now, people in Boston, Brockton, lower income families are being pushed out of the city. There's no place to go. They're going into Fall River. They can't get jobs because they have no way to get from Fall River to any other kind of job. And so this disparity is really alarming to me because I have housing down there, I do business down there, I educate down there, and this is a terrible thing. In this area particularly, we never get funding. This area on the South Shore and New Bedford, Fall River, Attleboro, Norton, Foxborough, never gets that funding. I fight with the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism about getting our fair share in this area. It never happens. That tourism money comes, it gets to New Bedford, it goes to that Whaling Museum, it crosses over into the Cape Cod, and nobody on this side sees it. It either comes this way, it either goes to the Cape or it goes to Plymouth. Nobody on the other side gets any of that travel and tourism money. And so when that funding for the arts come in, we deserve to get a chunk of that money. And so I don't know what you see is going to happen with this money, but I'm going to advocate for it. We're going to fight for it because we deserve it. For the last 20 years, this happens. The money comes in, it goes to New Bedford Whale Museum, jumps across over to Cape Cod, Nantucket, goes over to Plymouth, and everybody on this side gets nothing. And it's terrible. This can't happen this time.
Yeah, in fact, my first trip as a candidate was down to the South Coast, right? I went down to New Bedford and Fall River and Taunton, and I, talked to people down there about the challenges down there. The statement I would make is, and I mean it in a positive way, is the South Coast and the southeastern Massachusetts, in my mind, is the unpolished gem of the Commonwealth. I don't understand it either, because there are some great natural resources down there. For example, the deep water ports in Fall River and New Bedford. There's some beautiful terrain. There is some museums and tourist areas that can be more viable. There is some businesses that are trying hard to revitalize that area. I actually store my sailboat. I have a small sailboat and I store it in South Dartmouth, right? I sail over to there and they put it up all winter and then I sail it back in the spring. And I do that because I like the guy and the way that he does business over there. It would be easier for me to store it closer to where I live, but I like down there. And so that's where I store it. To me, Debbie, it really comes down to one issue: political will. Political will, the decision to say we're going to do it. Because I've been hearing about the North-South Rail, which I am in a favor of. I've been hearing about that for a long time. And geez, we just never get it, right? If you could just make a dual lane and better track bed, you could have high-speed trains and local stops along the way, all the way into Boston, and frankly, all the way down to Providence, right? I've taken the train from Boston that goes down there all the way to New York, and it's like, my God, it takes longer than it does to drive. The train goes at like 30 miles an hour, so nobody wants to take it because it takes so damn long to get there. But the way that you overcome that is you make a decision to invest in that area. So just like the Berkshires are underinvested, so is the South Coast. That area is underinvested. And you're right, dollars get fought at the State House. And that's my whole point. When I say, as Lieutenant Governor, I want to go to the various areas of the Cape, There is no one solution that is a monolithic solution for all of Massachusetts. The needs of the Berkshires are different than the needs of the South Coast, that are different from the needs of Cambridge, which are different from the needs of Worcester. And for us to get the Commonwealth as a whole thriving, it's not just getting Boston thriving, it's getting the other areas of the Commonwealth thriving too. And again, I owned a small business for over 20 years in Orange, Massachusetts. Orange, Massachusetts, the Athol Orange area is an economically challenged area, right? When I bought the business, it was a dying business. It literally made hand drills. And I don't mean the type that have power, the old hand drills that you had to crank. And I had to, modify the product line and move it into the future. And at one point I was, I only ended up with 10 employees. I think I started with like 15. And when we lost all those product lines that got closed down and went overseas because nobody's buying hand drills anymore, and China can provide the product cheaper than I could buy the raw materials, what happened at that point was you look at the town of Orange and it's in desperate need of investment. So I get, having lived with a business in a community that was underserved with state dollars for over 2 decades, the challenge that happens in those communities if you don't make the investment. So to me, it's not about cost, it's about investment. The vision for the future is not just building a shiny Boston, it's building out all of Massachusetts so that all of Massachusetts can do better going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We do see that you put your website in the chat. I think many of us will see you at the convention on Saturday.
I will be there.
Please keep in touch with us, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, and I will see you all on Saturday. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, next we have Secretary's report. Is there anything more beyond the minutes, Austin?
Yeah, we did receive, Mary Kate forwarded to me a thank you note that we received from the other scholarship winner. Let me pull it up here. Aditi Junagade. It's a very nice note, 1.5 pages, so I won't bother reading it in full, but just in brief, she let us know that she's enrolling at the University of Pittsburgh, plans to major in neuroscience, and then eventually go on to med school. So if anyone would like a copy, I'm happy to share it with you. But
nice. Thank you. And thanks, Mary Kate. Awesome job with that as usual. Treasurer's report, Treasurer Lisa Day, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. We currently have $1,673.85 in our account. The only activity since the last reporting in was we renewed our web hosting fee. Christian did that for us. And that was for $127.50. And then just looking back over the last few statements, I think it was the Warnock that never cashed our donation check. It's never come back. So I'm not sure why, but I've just gone ahead and added that back into the account at this point. So that's the only activity.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the treasurer? Okay, outreach officer, Sally, while you give your report, I'm going to take a quick break, but I'll be right back.
Okay, great. Can you hear me now? Great. I just put the link to Thursday's book group. It's time for this. Our time is now. We have a wonderful speaker coming from Mansfield. I just had his bio here. He actually lives in Franklin and he used to work at Joe Kennedy's Washington office. Alex Salakis serves as a policy and communications manager at Mansfield. Graduated from the American University of Washington, D.C., where he received his bachelor's degree in political science and history. And And so we look forward to his comments and his insights. And so I hope that you people will come. We have about 20 people coming already, so please join us. There's a link to register. Please look out for the survey to choose our next book. That'll be coming out. And we have a wonderful list, but we can't choose which one. So please help us choose. And then, so there'll be 2 more book groups in the Mansfield Pride, Juneteenth. And then, and if you'd like to join us in our outreach committee, please let me know. So that's it. Thank you so much,
Sally.
Jim.
Anyone
Sure.
have questions with Sally? Comments? Okay. Fundraising, I believe that's you, Mary Kate?
No report this month.
Okay. Mansfield votes. Nancy, do you have a report?
Just a reminder that Austin sent out the survey that was done of the membership committee by Suzanne Ironman, and Brendan was involved with that. And I just wanted to remind everybody to look it over and experience what the feedback was from the membership of our committee. And the other thing is, I'm ascertaining from the town clerk a list of residents of Mansfield and those that are registered to vote and those aren't. We'll be meeting shortly to figure out, what we might want to do with the unregistered citizens of Mansfield. So just wanted to mention that's coming soon. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Scholarship committee, anything more on that, Mary Kate?
No, we really won't be active again until about February.
Okay. All right, good. Membership committee. I have that report. The membership committee did meet. I don't have my glasses, so I have to turn on more light. Few things we had talked about. The website, Brendan did a very good write-up for our website to make it friendly and adoptable for our members. So thank you for that, Brendan. Nancy had mentioned the survey conducted by Susan Ironman that was sent out with the meeting notice this time. Probably something we'll discuss more at the next meeting, but I think there's a lot in there that the membership committee can tackle and take on. Nancy had also talked about maybe doing a bring a friend night to get people to come to a meeting or an event. We're still working that out, so we don't have a particular proposal. But on all these things, well, 2 things. One is we'd love to have more people join the membership committee. But regardless, if anybody has ideas or suggestions, even if you're not a member of it, we would love your input, your ideas, your suggestions. Outreach to super voters. Brendan had run a list and found that there are about 1,000 households in this town that always vote in Democratic primaries and are registered Democrats. So we thought maybe at some point we will do a mailing to them, invite them to look into us, maybe have an event we can invite them to. I don't know if that would be the holiday party or a meeting. We're still kind of kicking that around. We will be coming back to ask for a budget like that. Kevin Doyle has graciously agreed that he believes he can help us with printing on that. So that will help cut the expense of that a little bit, but I think it would be a good investment. More on that later. New members, we're going to be more proactive as people join to reach out to them, to talk to them, to welcome. And we're going to be reaching out to associate members who we haven't seen for a while, tell them we really want them back. The next meeting is October 5th. I don't know the day of the week. That's a Tuesday night, 7:30 on Zoom. So that's what we're up to. And we'd like your participation either as a member or any ideas or suggestions. Membership committee is here for the membership. So definitely feel free to share with us any thoughts that you might have. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Bylaws committee, Austin, I think you have a couple
Well,
of,
I was going to say not the committee as much as that there is a couple of proposed bylaws. Let me pull up in my list here.
Sure.
The first one was the recommendation from the ad hoc committee on this election support of committee members, and the second one was one that was drafted and developed by the executive board. Both of them have the full support of the executive board. They are on the back or the second page of the meeting notice, if anyone hasn't seen them yet. Would you like me to read them out, or you can do that?
What's the will of the committee? Do you want to read them? Do you want Austin to read them out loud? Are you ready to discuss it or make motions? It's really up to all of you guys.
As a member of the outreach of the candidate support committee, we're ready to present the proposal this evening.
Okay, I'm trying to see where you are in the agenda. I hope I did not skip you.
Yeah, you think you
Sorry, I did. I
Yeah.
apologize. Why don't we go back to that and you can make your presentation. I'm sorry I did that.
Not a problem. When would you like to do that now?
Yeah, why don't we? And then we'll go back to the other bylaw.
Okay, the ad hoc candidate support committee has come up with a conclusion that the best way to support candidates running for the office is by creating of a standing committee. We wish to amend our bylaws by adding the following committee under the committee section of our bylaws. And I don't know if you have the language for that you can put on the screen. I think Deb had a copy of it.
Here, I'll drop it into the chat. So.
Great. So I'll just read it, and it's short and sweet. And this is, Costas, would you like to read this since this is mostly your work? Are you there this evening?
I am. You can go ahead and read it if you
Okay.
like.
Okay. This is our recommendation. The candidate support committee shall consist of at least 3 members appointed by the chair of the Mansfield Democratic Town Committee. The members will be responsible for recruiting volunteers to organize within the town of Mansfield, coordinating with campaigns on local events, and provide training for volunteers from within the Democratic Town Committee. The campaign support committee will be available to all Democratic nominees who meet the state Democratic platform criteria, excluding primary races.
Any
So that's it.
comments, questions, discussion, pro and con arguments? Kevin, we hear you coughing, so that's whether your phone keeps.
Yeah, right.
coughing.
Whenever that green dot comes on, it's Kevin.
Kevin,
So
go.
I'll digest this for another month and then come back with comments. That's fine as well for us.
I just had one question.
Sure.
The volunteers, would they have to be a member of the committee?
Yeah.
Or, okay, that's what I
In
wanted to
reading
get
that
straight.
just now, I thought the same thing. I said,
Okay.
why do we have to have member only? We could change that to any active Democrat, or somebody who wants to, independent who wants to be involved. I think that's a good point.
Thanks for the clarity. Yeah.
Is that something, are you asking, Colin, that maybe you clean up a little of that and bring it to the next meeting?
Yeah, I thought that as I read that just now, I had the exact same
Okay,
conclusion that we're unnecessarily limiting it to people who want to support candidates from within our committee. So,
okay. Well, why don't you do this? If your committee wants to meet and resubmit it, maybe in time for the, that it could be sent it before the October meeting. We can take
Sure.
action on it
I
then.
don't think it would take very long if that's the only caveat that we see.
Anybody right now have any suggestions to give to this committee before they come back with a new proposal? Anything else that want to be tweaked or added or changed?
I think you did a great job, though.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yes.
do too. Joe, I wasn't clear on where you were talking about who should be members and not, but on the first line where it says the committee shall consist of at least 3 members, could that be associate members as well?
The way our bylaws read is associate members may serve on subcommittees as long as a majority are elected members and the chair has to be an elected member.
So the candidate support committee should consist of at least 3 members and associate members, right? Because it won't be limited to members.
I think members is
Well,
all encompassing, but if you want to suggest that, Colin and his committee can certainly take that.
Yeah, I think it's implied by not delineating full members versus associate members. But if you want to, we can always call it out in clearer language if you'd like.
I think it might help.
Sure. Not a problem. Well, for me anyway.
Okay, well, we'll look at that in your next draft.
Okay.
Joe Kaplan?
Hi, Kevin.
Joe, I just got a quick question about excluding the primary races. Does that mean that this committee will not be involved in any primary races?
No, the way it's written is that the Democratic Town Committee's members can be involved in as many primary races as they wish, of course, but this actual mechanism of this committee would only be in the general election, because we felt it would be too divisive to have one committee supporting 2 candidates for the same position in the Democratic Party. But of course, any member could support any candidate they wanted. And this
That's
doesn't
what I
limit
wanted
it.
to know. All right, that clears it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And anyone can be in touch with Colin, before he drafts the new version. Austin, did you want to talk about the second bylaw?
Sure. Let me go ahead and drop it in chat first, and then.
Okay.
So the second bylaw was drafted just to clarify the roles of subcommittees and subcommittee chairs, specifically that subcommittee chairs serve at the pleasure of the full committee chair, and that while their role is absolutely to lead the subcommittee and shepherd it forward, but that subcommittee chairs don't have the authority to make up the membership of their subcommittee. That is explicitly given to our chairperson elsewhere in the bylaws. So this is really just a clarification of that.
Any questions, comments, suggestions?
I'd like to make a motion, Joe, to approve this bylaw change.
Okay.
I'll
Is there-
second it, Joe.
Okay. So moved and seconded, moved by Kevin Doyle, seconded by Jackie Curtis. Any further discussion?
I just have a question of clarification, I guess. So this means that if there's a subcommittee, the chair of the subcommittee facilitates that subcommittee, but is not able to appoint members to that committee. It's just the chair of the chair of the organization that can put people on that subcommittee. Is that what this is saying?
That's how I read it. Austin, I believe, are you the author of this?
Well, I think jointly we came up with this, but yes, I mean, elsewhere in the bylaws that the power to appoint subcommittee members is already given to the chair. So this is just really further clarification. It doesn't really change how how subcommittees are composed. That being said, I mean, we don't anticipate, any willing individuals to be turned away from serving on subcommittees. It's simply to clarify that the full authority is with our chair.
Sharon, a little clarity. We also do it the same way on the state committee. The chair appoints the subcommittee. The chair appoints the chairs of the subcommittee, and then you expressed an interest to Gus, and then he lets that information go to the subcommittee. So it's the same setup. Nobody is usually refused an appointment in a subcommittee, but it's the same chain of command on the state committee.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
I have a question, Austin, about that. So from a practical standpoint, does that now mean that if somebody, wants to volunteer, they have to notify somebody and then be appointed, just so we
I mean,
understand?
technically, that's always been the case. I mean, technically what's supposed to happen is that, the chair solicits, committee, membership requests. As I said, in practice, I think as we said, we're not, going to turn down willing volunteers. So, in practice, I don't think it changes anything. It's just, should there be, any sort of, conflict or anything, it's the sole authority of the chair that determines, who is or is not on a subcommittee.
Anybody else? There's a motion on the floor. Anybody want to speak to the motion or have questions on it?
Can I just add something to that?
Sure, Lisa.
I think in the past, when we've established during the course of a regular meeting that there's going, who the chair of a subcommittee is going to be, we've called for volunteers to be interested, and the chair usually makes the statement, anybody that wants to serve on the committee with Lisa Dye, please let Lisa know. And it's just sort of an understood and open forum that anybody can be a member of any committee if they want to serve on it. And so clarifying the language is more to prevent a subcommittee chairperson from refusing to include someone who wants to serve on a committee, because we've had some of that happen, and we wanted to make this more clear and more open so that everybody could participate. I think that's the context, kind of where this came from. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, hearing. I think that hand that's up is yours, Lisa. I believe, Austin, that's Lisa's
Yeah.
hand. No, the hand.
And
Okay.
we can lower it.
Okay.
There we go.
Any other comments or suggestions? Okay, so no further discussion. Coming forward, all in favor of that bylaw?
Last minute.
Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that bylaw change passes unanimously, it sounds like. Are there any other local committee reports? State committee reports? Jackie, do you have anything?
I do. Actually, well, we all did. We just received information from Gus about the convention. And he did list already. He confirmed who some of the speakers are, and there's no surprises here. It'll be Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, Laurie Turan, Bill Galvin, Maura Healy, Deb Goldberg, and Suzanne Bump have already confirmed. The program will start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and this is good news. They expect to wrap everything up by approximately 2 o'clock. And additional information is going to be sent prior to the event on how to log on for that day. And the agenda would be that we're going to review the platform in the results. We're going to review the charter in the results, and we'll be reviewing the resolutions of the results. So that's what the day is going to look like. I'm sure there's 20, 30 guest speakers, but those are the top names that he already confirmed with. So 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and hopefully wrap up by 2 o'clock. That sounds really good to me. That's it.
Thanks, and that's good information. I didn't read that email yet, so I anybody have any more questions for the state committee? We'll have more to report after the convention. I think everyone's just really focused on Saturday, though. All right, the Ponset Valley Young Democrats. Brendan, do you have anything?
Yeah, hello. So we have our monthly meeting. October is still trying to set up, but in November we will be having the Borderland viewing as part of our meeting. If anyone's interested, if you have missed it one of the previous instances of the showings, we'll be having it again early November. We're still finalizing all the logistics and everything, so we can get more information out on that. And then also just an update from my end on the Young Democrats. the Young Democrats of America had its national convention last month, I think, if I can remember how long ago it was. And in that, I was elected the Young Democrats of America Northeast Regional Director. That's very much a title without much direction, but but it covers all the New England states and New York, and so be working there to help do more work at the national level for the Young Democrats as well.
Great. Anyone have any questions for Brendan? Well, congratulations, Brendan. We're very excited for you. Thank you very much. I don't think there's any potential new members in attendance. I think everyone here is a member. Am I wrong about that? Anybody see anyone new, for lack of a better word?
I don't see anyone on the
I don't see
attendee
anybody
list.
new.
Yeah.
All right. Donation of books to Mansfield Public Library and Mansfield High School in honor of Randy. I believe Dana, Mary Kate,
Maybe
and
it's in here.
Colin, this is this is your bailiwick, am I right?
Right. Mary Kate, would you like to do the honors? Maybe
Okay.
not. Okay.
Yeah, I had to unmute. Sure. So Deb asked us to form an ad hoc committee. It consists of Deb Tatum, Colin, Dana, Oregon, and myself right now. And we're exploring the goal of donating books on race, diversity, and social justice to local libraries in memory of Randy. Currently, we're still working on details of how this is going to happen, but basically each book will have a plate on the inside in memory of Randy. Colin's already talked to the librarian at Mansfield Library, so we've started on that process. And as soon as the structure details are determined about how this is going to work, we're going to be asking for the entire committee's help with the project. Monetary donations are welcome, and also expertise and input from all of the members will be welcome.
Great.
That's the project right now. It's really just started.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone who's working on that.
I don't know if Colin and Dana have something else to.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Folks, if either of you want to add.
No, we're just getting started, and this should be a fairly quick process. I touched base with the public library, and the process is pretty straightforward, so
Cool.
it shouldn't be too bad. So we should have something within a month or so.
Thank you. Dana, is there anything you wanted to add?
Nope. You guys
Okay.
covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, due to Randy's untimely passing, there is a committee vacancy we have to announce because he was one of the 35 members, and we will fill it at the next meeting in October, which is October 20th. Under state party rules, anyone who's currently an associate member gets preference for filling that seat. Any associate member can run. And if I'm recalling right, we still do it by instant runoff voting in case there are more than two candidates. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can either ask now or bring it to the chair, Deb Snyder. Anybody else have any comments on that?
How many associate members are there?
Austin could probably
There,
answer you
yeah,
better.
I mean, there are several dozen, although not all of them are active. So I think, on the roster, there's something like, 35 to 40, but fewer than half are active. So
Yeah, it's roughly equivalent to the number of full voting members, I
yeah.
believe. But as Austin said, there's different levels of participation and all that. Under pleasure of the committee, the chair asked me to remind everyone that the potluck is going to be happening this coming Sunday, the 26th, the day after the convention, 4 p.m. Same location as originally planned. She asked that people RSVP, even if it's just a maybe. We don't expect to get an exact count. We're not looking for an exact count, but would like a rough estimate. So if anybody knows that they're going or not going, or even if they want to say maybe, a quick note to the chair would be very appreciated. Anything else under pleasure of the committee? No one? Okay. The next meeting is going to be October 20th. We'll have another candidate for state auditor at that meeting, and also a representative from Massachusetts Organizer for Climate Exchange. No other further questions, comments, ideas? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay, great. Made by Kevin Doyle, seconded by Brendan Roach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think there's at least a majority there. So thank you very much for being with us tonight. And we look forward to seeing you maybe over the weekend at one venue or the other. Thank you.